News now with Paul Meunier. Paul.
Thank you, Nancy, and good evening, everyone. RCMP in Nova Scotia say their members worry about their safety when they enter the community of North Preston.
I don't know if it's fear, but I can assure you this: our members are certainly on their guard when they go to that community.
Then, Charlottetown police arrest a suspect in the Loki 7 bombing.
Once the informations are laid tomorrow, and I anticipate they will be, then I can say, yes, we have our man.
And a New Brunswick highway hits a prehistoric roadblock.
People will, in fact, go out and hack away at the rocks and take them home as souvenirs, and they won't be available for scientific study.
Live from the ATV News Center at every city and town in the Maritimes. Steve Murphy, Steve Weigel. This is the ATV Evening News.
Good evening. Steve Murphy's off tonight. The RCMP in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia say they're sometimes afraid when they enter the community of North Preston. The statement came during a news conference called to deal with criticism Mounties faced after their handling of a fight involving North Preston children. Last Thursday night, police used pepper spray to break up the fight at Cole Harbour High School, a move that brought strong condemnation from parents in the area. ATV's Jonathan Gravener now with details.
It was supposed to be a press conference aimed at clearing the air, but it turned into a startling admission by police, who say officers have been threatened by people from the community of North Preston.
We'll get you when you come to North Preston. You wanted a quote, that's a quote. A powder keg, I don't know if it's to that extent yet, but I can tell you that it's tense sometimes when our members go up there to police. There is a certain amount of fear. I would be remiss if I didn't say that. If you're going there on a Friday night or a Saturday night, you don't know if your back window is going to be smashed out, and when it's smashed out, you don't know if it's going to be smashed out with a pebble or a brick and a big chunk of cement. Police
draw a line to their problems through last May the 13th, when a huge crowd held them at bay for several hours in North Preston when they tried to make an arrest. They were stoned as police cars ran a gauntlet out of town.
I think it goes back longer than May 13th. I mean, we have members here who are through this detachment for the second time who were stoned or rocked 15, 20 years ago.
Police go further, saying even law-abiding North Preston residents are afraid to help.
The unfortunate thing is, ladies and gentlemen, they cannot stand up and say that they support the RCMP because they fear for their own safety in their own community. For example, possibly being burned out, retaliation against them or a family member if they're seen to be associating too closely with the police.
Ron David lives in North Preston. He helped the RCMP establish a community policing program there. And after last week's fight at Cole Harbour High and today's startling admission by police, he wonders if that program can ever work.
Right now, it looks like almost like a hopeless cause right now, unless we can get to the young people minds, because there's a lot of animosity built up into a lot of them at this point in time. And I would hate to see anything happen to the police or their crews or anything at this point in time.
David says the only answer to the policing problem in his community might be an RCMP officer drawn from the many unemployed young men in North Preston.
And I've known there were 3 or 4 young guys in the last 7 or 8 years been trying to get on the force. My young fella for one, my oldest fella for one. And I think his application is still down the police station somewhere, laying on the back burner somewheres.
Now, Paul, today's news conference was called to allow police to defend their use of pepper spray on North Preston teens during a fight at Cole Harbour High School last Thursday. Tonight, parents and students from North Preston who were involved in that incident are going to meet behind closed doors without any media there to try and find out what their next move is going to be. Now, police feel that their use of pepper spray, by the way, was not excessive. The parents say it was. Tonight, the parents are hoping to unite on one thing to go against the police on this. Paul.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. We'll have more reaction from the community tomorrow here on the ATV Evening News at 6. Police in Prince Edward Island have charged a middle-aged Charlottetown man in connection with the Loki 7 bombing that rocked the legislature last year. The man was arrested in a downtown apartment this morning and charged in court late this afternoon. Dan Vio has the latest for us.
The man in his early 50s was arrested in an apartment in this downtown building. Police won't release his name until he's charged in court, but they say he's suspected in connection with all 3 bombings linked to Loki 7.
Once the informations are laid to, I can say, yes, we have our man. But until that point in time has come, the file is still open. We are not looking for anyone else at this point in time in relation to the files.
No one was killed by the bombs, but one bystander was injured when what police called a very powerful pipe bomb exploded outside the historic legislature here in April last year. It shattered windows and left politicians inside hiding under their desks. Letters bearing a stylized swastika and the title Low-Key 7 claimed responsibility for that bomb, and one that had exploded outside the Charlottetown courthouse in 1988. And then tipped police to a similar bomb at this propane storage yard in June of this year. That area was evacuated, and the bomb detonated as a police robot attempted to disarm it. Once all 3 bombs were linked by the Low-Key 7 letters, police launched a massive investigation as worried islanders waited and wondered who was responsible. Today, people in the man's neighborhood were shocked and relieved by the arrest.
You wouldn't think he'd be around here, would you?
No, you wouldn't. No. Pretty quiet neighborhood, eh?
Yeah. A person like that going around planting bombs, killing people, it's not very good, is it?
No. Police say the man fits the profile you'd expect. A quiet loner with few friends, bitter over alleged mistreatment by the system, and targeting the establishment rather than any specific people.
I think we're happy with where we're at this point in time. Hopefully, things will go smoothly from here.
In Charlottetown, Danville, ATV News.
There will be another high school in the Kennebecasis Valley. The school district has ruled out an expansion at Kennebecasis Valley High. Instead, Rossay Junior High will be converted into a high school for about 500 students. Superintendent Dennis Cochran says he was concerned about marking KVHS.
1,600 today is a reasonable size for KV, but is 1,800 tomorrow, or is 1,900 the day after tomorrow a reasonable number? This way, we'll have some room at KV because we'll be actually reducing its population over the next year or two by about 200.
The reorganization is needed because the province is moving toward the middle school concept with grade 9s going to high school. It also means about 200 students at Rossay Park Elementary will be transferred elsewhere to make way for a middle school. We're not interested. That comment today from St. John area residents opposed to regional amalgamation. A group from Quispamsis says the McKenna government should think twice about merging St. John with its bedroom communities. About 30 people from the area brought a petition with 7,000 signatures to the New Brunswick legislature to try to convince the government not to go ahead with amalgamation. A government-appointed commission is now reviewing the issue and is expected to submit recommendations to the government sometime next year. The future of handicapped adults was a hot topic in the New Brunswick legislature this afternoon. Tory health critic L.V. Robichaud questioned Health Minister Russ King about the plan to move handicapped adults from residential apartments into nursing homes.
Doesn't the minister agree that the senior home for people of 20 or 30 years old is not the proper placement?
Mr. Speaker, again, this is not a plan to put people in nursing homes.
Concerns also run deep in St. John, where about 10 people held a demonstration earlier today protesting the move. Fredericton City Police are trying to find out what caused a 2-month-old baby to end up in hospital in serious condition. Police received a 911 call from a house on this north side street last Thursday saying a child had stopped breathing. A baby girl was admitted to the Chalmers Hospital and police were called in because of what medical staff called suspicious injuries.
Statements are being taken from the parents and friends, relatives of the parents as well, and we're in close relations with the medical staff at the hospital on an hourly basis.
The baby's name hasn't been released, and so far, no charges have been laid in connection with the case. Video lottery terminals are one of the biggest suppliers of gambling revenue in this region. The machines bring in millions and have long been criticized as a cause of gambling addiction. Now, Ottawa is being asked to ban the machines from all locations except casinos. The request comes from an anti-poverty group, and as Alex Bass tells us, it's getting mixed reviews.
Go one more shot, and that's it for today.
Holy Steve's plays the machines every day. He's retired now and says he'll spend $100 a day on the VLTs. While he admits he loses more money than he wins, the attraction to play is irresistible.
And if they weren't here, I wouldn't be playing them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't go to Halifax or Montreal to play.
The National Council on Welfare wants VLTs limited only to casinos. Right now, it says they're too accessible to young people. A report by the council also recommends stiffer penalties for people who let minors play, more research on gambling, and more help for addicts.
I think it's very important to understand that the more that the machines are available in some of those places, the more problems we're going to have.
The New Brunswick Coin Operators Association says if these machines are removed from corner stores and bars, it would have a dramatic impact on the provincial economy. In this province, it employs about 600 people and generates a payroll of $7 million a year. The Coin Operators Association says gambling problems will just be driven underground.
The abuses don't disappear. They just become less visible and easier to ignore.
Corner store owner Eris LeBlanc says removal of VLTs would also affect his store's income.
Like I said, if we can have that kind of money on those machines, it'll help us to pay the rent.
VLT jurisdiction varies from province to province. In Nova Scotia, they've already been limited to licensed liquor establishments and casinos. In Moncton, Alex Bass, ATV News.
The case for the prosecution is almost complete at the extradition hearing in Halifax of 7 Taiwanese officers of the Maersk Dubai who are accused of murdering 3 Romanian stowaways. Captain John Lewis, a man with 44 years sea experience and who has commanded warships and commercial vessels, testified today. Lewis, who now manages the Coast Guard fleet, told the court that the makeshift raft on which 2 stowaways were allegedly set adrift in March was likely very unstable and likely to capsize. He told the court the ship's log noted a strong breeze and high seas on that day.
What was the survivability, in your judgment, of those people?
I don't think it was too great, actually. I don't think the weather was quite rough, and it was a pretty flimsy construction, so I'm not too happy with the outcome.
Former bosun from the Maersk Dubai, Rodolfo Miguel, completed his testimony today. One more witness will be called to complete the prosecution's case. Some maritime tell-and-tell employees may have been exposed to PCBs. A capacitor in this building on Herring Cove Road in Halifax caught fire Wednesday night. MTNT confirms the capacitor contained PCBs. At least 4 employees may have been exposed to them over a 2-day period. Steve Shatford is one of them.
Oh, a little anxious. Just waiting for the test to come back. We don't really know. We won't know anymore till they come back.
MTNT brought consultants wearing Enviro safety suits into the building on Friday to determine if PCBs were in fact released. At the time, employees were still working there. The building has since been closed. MTNT expects the test results later this week. Fossils that may have been buried in New Brunswick for millions of years have been unearthed at a new highway construction site. But paleontologists, the people who study the fossils, are afraid the project could bury as many rare rocks as it unearths. ATV's Sally Cummings is standing by live with more. Sally?
Well, Paul, paleontologists are greeting this new highway construction with mixed feelings because on one hand, many specimens are being unearthed that they may have never found before. But on the other hand, they're wondering how many others have been destroyed in the process. And some would like to see a way of preserving these fossils better.
See the fine? Oh, yeah. That's like a bug.
Department of Transportation workers examined the area that's been excavated for Highway 1. Resident engineer Brian Perry says workers discovered some tracks in the rocks during construction, but paleontologists weren't able to get there in time to check them out.
They were circular, I guess, what they were, and anyway, you come back the next day after he was talking, I think they had gone anyway.
The New Brunswick Museum has marked the spot with spray paint for future reference.
I mean, the downside is if you actually have a fossil site that's in jeopardy, you know, you like to get out and try to get as much as possible.
Paleontologist Randy Miller admits valuable clues to the past are often sacrificed under tight construction deadlines.
This is probably one of the better specimens we've ever found.
He found this 360-million-year-old fish fossil, now on display at the museum in the same area 3 years ago. But Department of Transportation officials also see benefits to the road work, which has helped unearth 3 times the specimens that would have been found.
For sure. Without the excavation or construction, that some of these fossils would not have been uncovered.
But UNB professor Ron Pickerel believes New Brunswick needs laws to protect them. There are fines of up to $10,000 for stealing fossils in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland.
People will, in fact, go out and hack away at the rocks and take them home as souvenirs.
But Randy Miller worries added legislation would only create more red tape. Now that construction has ended for the season, paleontologists will have a better chance to study their new finds before the heavy equipment is back again in the spring. In Norton, Sally Cummings, ATV News.
A dead whale is creating quite a stir in the community of Gaborone. The whale washed ashore over the weekend, and today it became a source of much excitement. We've got the story tonight from Randy McDonald.
Something happened in Gaborone. What was it?
There's nothing like a big whale suddenly appearing on your village's doorstep to spark an interest in marine biology. A 14-meter-long fin whale, all 30 or so tons of it, washed up on the beach in Gaborone on the weekend. The dead mammal has caught the attention of the entire village, especially its youngest students.
It's big and pretty amazing for this little village.
How the whale died is also discussed.
He might have been swimming around at the top looking for food and a boat hit him.
In fact, what probably killed the juvenile-aged fin whale was Mother Nature.
And as winter sets in, there's a lot of animals that dive. They're usually young animals, and it's from thermal shock. They just are too cold to survive. They may not have fed well enough during the summer to have a thick coat of blubber.
The beaching of this big whale spawns more than just curiosity. It's also a fairly rare opportunity for scientists to learn more about this type of marine mammal.
If we get some tissue samples, we might be able to look at some toxins that are contained in the tissue samples themselves as a measure of what sort of water quality this animal's been swimming in. Might be able to do some genetic samples.
But in terms of student interest, genetics cannot compete with a good old-fashioned school field trip. So all the kids were on the beach today for a close-up look. Some also had a nose for it.
Really stinks!
A quick decision is expected on whether the dead fin whale will be towed out to sea or buried on land. In Gaborone, Nova Scotia, Randy McDonald, ATV News.
Still to come on the ATV Evening News, assessing the new tax. We try to figure out how the blended sales tax will affect your monthly budget. That's later. But next, a weekend fire has left people in one maritime community scrambling for new jobs. What happens when the jobs go up in smoke? Instead of heading to work today, 40 workers from a lumber mill near Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, went to the unemployment line. They weren't laid off. The mill where they worked burned to the ground over the weekend. As ATV's Janice Landry reports, the losses left everyone scrambling.
Instead of heading off to work at the lumber mill as usual Monday morning, Stuart Frail went to the local unemployment office.
There's my job laying in the rubble, and what am I going to do now?
Frail got his paycheck Friday. He, like 39 others who rely on this mill for jobs, didn't know it would be their last for a while. Fire destroyed the mill early Saturday morning. The owner says it may have been an electrical problem. Elmer Lonus's property was the target of arson 19 years ago. This latest blaze has left him wondering what to do.
I'm thinking about rebuilding. I am thinking some about rebuilding, but I don't want to stress that point too much. But it's in my mind, but I got to do a lot of thinking before I say yes.
The men hope the mill reopens. They even have a proposition for the owner.
If everybody's going to be on unemployment, everybody can come in and like help out and volunteer work and just get the place going again. At least then you're going to have a job.
Rodenizer says he's talked to most of the workers and they're willing to help rebuild. It's not just the 40 men and the owner who will feel the loss of the mill. It's also the local businesses. Because if the men are not earning money, they're certainly not spending it in this community either. Most of the workers go to this gas station every day for coffee and lunch. Today, they didn't show up.
The mill's been around, and I mean, he's gone to a lot of the main places here in Wallville to get his supplies and stuff for the mill, and a lot of people's going to miss it.
Meanwhile, Frail says he'll help rebuild. For now, though, he's planning ahead, trying to rebuild his own life, until the owner decides whether to try again for a third time. In Wildville, Janice Landry, ATV News.
2 weeks after a gas leak sent 4 people to hospital, the Heath steel mines in New Brunswick have reopened. Investigators have been trying to determine the cause of the accident, as well as an earlier incident which killed 1 man and seriously injured another. A report is in the hands of government, union, and mine officials. The general public will get their first look at it during a news conference later this week. Up next on the ATV Evening News, the BST and you. How will the new tax affect your monthly budget? That story when we return after this. The blended sales tax seems to be raising more questions than answers for many people in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. So, how will the new tax affect you? Here's ATV's Star Dobson now to clear up some of the confusion.
Roberts and Jeff Blundell plan to buy a new home together in the summer. In order to calculate their mortgage eligibility, they have to know their monthly budget. The problem is, when they buy the home, the new tax could change that budget. Here's how the BST is expected to affect them.
You're looking at about $30 a month increase on where you are right now.
The extra $30 will come from a jump of 8% on the tax rate of gas, a higher electricity bill, and an increase in the tax on clothing under $100.
I think it's definitely going to affect me in a bad way.
The new blended sales tax will be different for everyone. Marilyn and Jeff are glad they'll save a little money when they're renting a movie, but they don't like the idea of having to pay more money for haircuts.
Marilyn and Jeff will pay about the same for their new house in the summer as they would right now. They will, however, save some money in filling it. The tax rate on appliances will drop almost 4%. Their cable and phone bills will cost about 4% less, and if they run into car trouble, the price of repairs will drop as well.
And would you give anything to drink at all? Or?
Marilyn and Jeff will also save close to 4% on their restaurant food purchases, but for them, that's not a big piece of the BST pie.
So it depends on your lifestyle and whether you travel a lot.
Okay, what would you like to do?
Marilyn says there's one good point of the new tax. She will, like all other Maritimers, continue to receive her GST rebate check. In Halifax, Star Dobson, ATV News.
What time? Morning?
Steve Wiegels working on the maritime weather forecast. He says it won't be too taxing. We'll have it when we come back. Well, you know, Steve Wiegel, when we look across the country, we've had it pretty easy here in the Maritime so far this morning.
And we've got it easy the next few days, too. Very mild. Not a lot of snow for Santa as we head into midweek. Let's take a look at our big satellite shot first. And there is a hint of snow later this week and into the weekend, but until then, very mild across our region, with temperatures approaching 10 and 11 degrees by Wednesday and Thursday. Some rain back to the west. We're starting to see some flurry activity into New Brunswick right now. Temperatures at the freezing mark are just slightly below. We're looking at mild air continuing to push up. Here's our next storm system tracking to the west of the Maritime, so we're on the warm side of this system. Very cold back out west for the prairies. Temperatures tomorrow, Edmonton, Saskatchewan, Regina, or Saskatoon or Regina, looking at temperatures fighting to get to minus 20. So chilly back out west. Mild in the Maritimes. In fact, tomorrow will be the mildest area of the country, and we will continue that way for Wednesday and Thursday, too. A look at the latest satellite shot shows not a lot of sunshine here. In fact, we've got mainly cloudy conditions. Some of the precipitation back to the west is beginning to move into New Brunswick, so we're looking at light precipitation overnight, making for slippery road conditions. Scattered flurries, 0 to minus 2 for overnight lows in New Brunswick, 0 for Charlottetown, and just at the freezing mark or slightly below for Nova Scotia. Tomorrow, take a look at this. Scattered flurries to the north, mixed with showers later in the day as temperatures rise up. Scattered showers to the south through Fredericton, Moncton, St. John. Around the Bathurst area, mixture expected. 2 to 6 for daytime highs. And temperatures continuing to warm up during the day. Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island.